What's up, guys? All right, so today I'm talking about something very serious, and I'm going to have to be very careful with my language, and I'm going to have to preface a lot of things and explain a lot of things so that people don't get the wrong idea, because what I'm about to talk about might be considered dangerous, and I'm going to have to add a lot of stipulations so that you understand what I'm actually saying, so that nobody gets the wrong idea. I am not the type of person that is Machiavellian, where I use and abuse. I am not the type of person that is wicked at heart. Ultimately, when the when I am given the privilege to choose, I will always choose mercy over severity. But if you do not have the ability to dish out severity, then you are not a pacifist. You're a fucking pussycat. Understand that. Now, why am I even talking about this? Look, if we look at history, many things have happened. Civilizations have been created, kingdoms have been built, and they all crumbled. We all look at this idea of an apocalypse as if it's the end of the world, but many of the people from our past have faced the apocalypse and the world continued spinning. And we are here now. We are here now, right? We still here. Now the idea of what I'm trying to get across is a component of what makes you a well-rounded man or woman. Now, women might see this differently because there's different conceptualizations of what a true woman is. And some women will be like, no, I need to be feminine. I need to. Blah, blah, blah. And sometimes it's men that are telling them you need to be feminine and blah, blah, blah. So I don't understand how to explain this to a woman unless you see yourself as an actual warrior. I'm not talking about you're a warrior because you got past that breakup. Like, cool, you went through a hard thing and you were able to get out of it and survive and rebuild yourself. That's awesome. I'm happy for you. But I'm talking about warfare. I'm talking about fighting. I'm talking about killing to survive. Right? I'm talking about something else. I'm talking about testing your bone against metal, right? And the reality is this: I like to preach to people being a pacifist, right? Choosing peace over chaos, over havoc, over death, right? But the reality is that if you are not able to destroy everything in your path, then you can't call yourself a pacifist. You simply can't. What happens is a lot of people confuse pacifism with inability, with not being capable, with being docile, being domesticated. And this is simply something that might work in a modern world, but if certain aspects of this modern world were removed, if this is your persona and you exist this way within this modern world, but this modern world was to collapse and it was dog eat dog and it was, you know, might is right, do you have the capability to survive that? And not only survive that, but would you be able to enforce your will on this world and recreate, rebuild, and restart civilization and create something where people can be at peace, where people can be free, where people have rights? Because we all think about rights as this thing that is inherent, given by God. But if you have a God given right to live free, and I have the power to slaughter all of your men and keep you as a slave, What good is that right? I'm not saying that I would do this. I'm saying if I wanted to and I was capable of doing so, what would be stopping me? Saying, hey, I have a God given right to freedom and the pursuit of happiness. Does that save you? Being able to utter those words, does that, oh, well, he said, pursuit of happiness. I can't do anything about it anymore. Like, does that actually save you? The reality is, everything that's built needs to be protected. If there are current things that you enjoy about civilization, the only way those things can persist is if there are people that are ready, willing, and able to defend it. And if you're not able to defend it, you need to become able to defend it, or else it's all for nothing. It's like these apocalypse movies, zombie movies, where somebody says, I'll survive because I have 15 years worth of food and medications and this and that and blah, blah, blah. And they stack up all these things that are supposed to save their lives. And then the first bad guy that comes around takes it all. And ultimately, all of that resource hoarding was not even for you. You were just holding it for somebody stronger than you. And I really want to drive this point home, especially from this esoteric perspective that I usually look at things from. If you are a mystic, an esotericist, or an occultist, and you see this world for what it is, and you have this ability to engage with the spiritual world, realm, entities, you have access to all of this information that the average person doesn't, then how are you not aware that your physical capability and skill to defend you, your family, your loved ones, your friends, your society, your village, your town, your city, your ideals, your values, your ethics. How has this not crossed your mind? And if it hasn't, and this is the first time you're hearing it, then buckle in, bro. Like, this shit's about to get real. Now, listen, when it comes to defending yourself, there are many aspects to it. Obviously, the obvious first step is hand to hand combat, which everybody believes they understand. Oh, I'm gonna learn Krav Maga in case someone attacks me in the street. But what's the end goal? You see, when people study martial arts, a lot of people study it specifically for self defense purposes. So you're thinking, oh, some guy tried to mug me, and within that context of that situation, I felt like I was truly in danger, and giving them what they wanted might have not been an option, and I needed to fight and survive. Awesome, right? You built a skill that defended you and kept you alive. Awesome. A lot of people would say, hey, look, if they just want your wallet, just give it to them. And that's also a valid point because, like personally, like I don't have much. So giving up my wallet could mean losing everything I have. So in my situation, fighting for that wallet might be necessary. Um, Everybody has different situations. If your wallet just isn't that important and you're not that skilled, it might be better for you to give it up. But when I think about things, I like to think about the end game? What are you actually doing? What's the extreme end of this scenario? And when it comes down to it, somebody trying to take your wallet isn't that serious. You could give it to them. If that's not an option, you can fight. You might get fucked up. You might win. You could call the cops. There's all sorts of scenarios, situations that can arise from that. But what's the end goal? You see, if you're a warrior, you're not fighting so that you can submit your friends when you roll, right? Like you're at the dojo, you're like you're at the BJJ gym and you're rolling with your friend and he keeps tapping you, so you're trying to get better so you can tap him and oh man, I tapped you 3 times today. The fucking hoorah. You know, it's not about learning to fight so that you can get into a competition and get first place and win a medal. It's not about, you know, some crazy guy attacks you in the subway and you beat him up with your awesome head kicks. Um, when you look at the end game of fighting, it's about survival, but not just your survival. It's about the survival of your people and your ideals, your way of life, your quality of life. And there's like this big thing that we need to get into here because it's like, hey, we live in this modern world and like when's the next time we're really going to go to war with like the tribe next door, right? And it's like, yeah, that makes sense. But you see, if you learn how to take warfare to its ultimate conclusion, its most extreme, and you're capable of doing that, you can then just pull your punches. And that's what makes you a true pacifist. If I have the capability of absolutely slaughtering everything in my path, and I choose not to because I don't have to, and I prefer peace, then that is true pacifism. Because I actually have the ability to do that, and I'm choosing not to. Not to say that me personally has the ability. I assume that there's a lot that I don't know, and I still need to get better. But this is my path. This is what I'm trying to understand and learn how to do. Because we sometimes look at martial arts from these narrow point of view. You do BJJ and you want to be able to win a competition, or you do BJJ and Muay Thai, a little bit of Taekwondo, maybe a little this, a little that. You build a nice little MMA style, and you go into MMA and you want to win in the octagon. But this is all cool. But the reality is that if you train like you were in the military and you're really good at MMA, you can still go into the octagon and fight, and you don't have to kill in the octagon. You can fight your hardest and understand, you're not attempting to literally kill this person. You can hold back, and that's what makes you a pacifist. And what I'm trying to hone in on here is that a lot of times people consider themselves warriors, but they can't even begin to conceptualize what that means. So, I would advise you guys, if you consider yourself a warrior and you either dabbled with some, a little boxing, a little this, a little that, I would tell you this is the time to go deeper into this field, if you're studying and trying to become more intellectual and you're allowing yourself to be vulnerable and experience yourself from a more emotional standpoint within control, not just being ballistic and crying because like you stepped on an ant. Like I'm talking about like truly understanding yourself and others emotionally and becoming emotionally intelligent and being more spiritual and really engaging with the practices and the mysticism and doing like engaging with arts and music and all of these things, and you're experiencing yourself from this broad perspective, this that you're going deep into every aspect of what it is to be human. You can't let go of your physicality. So now it might sound like I'm gonna uh toot my own horn here, and I'm really not trying to, because I really don't see myself as the epitome of warriors, right? There's a lot that I don't know. There's a lot of limitations that I have simply from the lack of money, because if you're trying to practice like five different martial arts, that would get extremely expensive, and I just can't do that. But I do everything I can to understand and learn as much as I possibly can. So this preamble is just letting you know I don't see myself as the highest level of warrior. It's just I'm attempting to get there. And even professional fighters might not have in mind I'm fighting to kill and survive, right? A lot of times people train specifically to just beat the other person. But in certain situations, if society crumbles and it ends up just being tribal warfare, where it's either you live or you die, either these people take everything you have or you kill them, are you going to be able to, you know, protect your own in that situation? So now let me chop it up a little bit for you guys. Over the years, I have practiced many different martial arts, and as I practiced them, I thought that I knew the best. And then I discovered something new that just exposed this entire blind side that I had. So I went deep into that to fill in that blind side. And then I found something else, and then I found something else. And today, at this point in life, I feel that I truly understand the art of combat extensively. But even then, I lack. I am not the largest person. I am pretty heavy. I have a lot of muscle and strength, but I'm a pretty short person. You put me up against some 6'6" guy, 320 pounds, solid muscle. I'm not going to be able to come out of that if it's a hand to hand fight. So if I was to extrapolate and say, well, what happens in a survival situation where there is no cops to call, there is no infrastructure, there is no society, and there's this 6'6", 320 pound solid muscle guy standing between me and the survival of my people and the protection of my property and my resources. What happens? So let's get into the beginning of this. Fighting is divided into three components. You have your striking, you have your grappling, and you have your wrestling. Personally, I think one of the best ways to start your striking, which is the predominant form of fighting, I would assume that Muay Thai is the best thing you could possibly do, because Muay Thai is going to teach you how to punch, how to throw elbows, knees, kicks. The kicks can be a little more fancy and extravagant. But for the most part, they're simple. If you want to understand more about kicking and learning different types of kicks, and I've seen people literally be able to kick you in the head even though they're 6 inches away from your face, right? And to me, that is undoable. I am not that flexible, but I've seen people be able to do this. So developing those skills are extremely useful. So now, if you have Muay Thai as a starter um, kit to your martial arts, you have your clinch, your teep. You're gonna understand how to check kicks. Check low kicks, thigh kicks, body kicks, simply with your, uh, what I think you guys understand what it means to check a kick. But you know, um, if you want to understand more about kicking and become a kicking specialist, Taekwondo is obviously the best way to go. Although I feel Taekwondo is more of an end game type of martial art. If you were to have learned it at young age, then awesome. But I think you're going to get more out of Muay Thai than Taekwondo because Taekwondo is going to teach you some amazing skills when it comes to kicking. But their punching is a little more basic. And maybe there's parts of it that I just haven't fully explored and I'm just misinformed. But from what I know, Taekwondo is mostly a kicking sport. It is an awesome skill, but I think you're better off with Muay Thai. Now, I personally don't think that the next martial art is the best, but it's something that I started very young and I personally love it, which is Wing Chun. Oh, Wing Sung, which is the martial art that Ip Man taught to Bruce Lee. Now, there are traditional forms of Wing Sung that are very sticky when it comes to their stance, and it's more about showmanship and tradition than the actual fight. But there are some modern guys that teach Wing Chun that are more aimed towards utility, like what actually works. And some of these like blocks like this, where you like, let's say you block this punch, grab the inside of the what's it called, the elbow, drag them in, and go for a punch, and then maybe grab the back of the neck, and then you already have this go for a judo throw, blah blah blah. There's some unique um, elements to Wing Chun that when you mix with a stronger striking skill like what's it called, Muay Thai, and you also mix with some grappling like judo and Roman Greco wrestling, it becomes very, very usable. And it's not something that you're going in as a Wing Chun guy. It's more like these are little tricks I picked up from Wing Chun, and I'm bringing them into my actual fighting ability because it adds things that are unique and aren't found in any other tradition. Um, Now, Wing Chun is where I draw the line when it comes to Kung Fu. When you start going into Kung Fu and, you have your crane and your praying mantis and this and that, it looks cool in movies, but it's not practical. And honestly, it might be an amazing sport, but you would need to be like better than the best master to actually perform it in a way where it's practical and usable in a real situation. So I love the whole Asian martial art kung fu type stuff, but I personally think that the Asian types of martial arts that are better are those that end with the word do. So taekwondo, judo, um, and those types of things. I forgot all the other ones. There's a few of them. which is interesting because the martial arts that end with the word do, in that context is actually referencing the philosophy behind it. And I can't get too into it because I forget a lot of things. But when you go deeper into the philosophy, you're going to see a lot of uh, things relevant to Taoism and uh, like Wu Wei, doing, not doing. And if you're able to truly embody that teaching and be able to experience it while doing martial arts, this is an amazing thing because you sort of go into this flow state, something that you would see maybe like ballerinas go into, or other performance arts like gymnasts or ballerinas, dancers, where they go into this flow state where they're just moving and things are happening and it looks so smooth and perfect. It's like they left their body and a god stepped in and did everything for them. And I wanted to mention that because achieving Wu Wei within martial arts is like highly prized. And it's one of the things that come from these Asian martial arts that I think are essential. It's not the easiest thing to perform because, Wu Wei is not something you could just do. It's something more that you allow to happen. It's simple yet complicated for people that have never experienced it. Now, I think Wing Chun is a very awesome martial art to draw certain things from and place them into your art because it would ultimately benefit you. There are certain techniques that are unique to this art that will ultimately work, but there are some techniques that don't work. So if you start looking up Wing Chun, you're going to see a lot of people doing these windmill punches, and these windmill punches just lack the power to do anything. Sometimes they're presented as like, well, in like 10 seconds, I can punch you 30 times. But if those 30 punches feel like you did, like you were tapping me with your finger, what exactly did you do, It's like when I punch somebody, I am not looking to annoy them. I'm looking to break their fucking face. Um, so yeah. Now there are people that are a little more modern that can teach these techniques in a way that are more practical. Like if you go into this windmill punch and the person in front of you is seeing this, and then you come in with an elbow, an uppercut, an an over the head downward punch, and then clinch, start throwing knees. This might be a little more understandable. But if you get caught up in the style and the showmanship of it, where I'm a Wing Chun man and I'm gonna do this for like 5 seconds and destroy you, with the power of anime, maybe it's not that great. And I really don't want to shit on these martial arts because I truly love all of these martial arts, but I'm trying to be practical and I'm trying to actually do something that's going to save my life if I ever am in that situation. Now, moving on to grappling. Um, a lot of people that know about mixed martial arts and MMA in general, they're obviously going to go to Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. It's the best way to grapple. Now, the problem with Brazilian Jiu Jitsu is that everybody doing Brazilian Jiu Jitsu is doing Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. So you're going to get a lot of butt scooching, people, pulling guard right off the bat. No, there's so many times where there's competitions and nobody wants to start on their feet. They're going straight to the floor. And it's like in a real fight, are you really going to start fighting with someone and then just sit down and let them, come attack you? Like if it's a real fight and I'm squaring up and you just sit down and expect me to fall into your guard, I'm gonna kick you in the fucking face, right? Like it just doesn't make sense. And now Brazilian Jiu Jitsu is a very powerful martial art, but if you go into this martial art and you are doing specifically this martial art without like not like Gracie Brazilian Jiu Jitsu where there's striking involved, but like you're specifically doing BJJ and you're following the rules of the competition, there's going to be parts of it that make it unpractical in a real fight. Now, obviously, I'm not saying that this is a bad martial art. This is a necessary martial art to know. But when you do this martial art, you need to understand the difference between doing it in the gym and doing it in real life. For instance, if I take your back and you go into turtle in like on the mat, like I'm gonna have to fight to try to take your neck, maybe go into seatbelt, maybe sweep so that we turn over and now we're in like in a seated position or blah blah blah. Right? There's all these things that I could do. In a street situation, you pull turtle, I'm just bashing you in the back of the head, right? So I'm not saying this to shit on BJJ. I love BJJ, and I am sure that there is a plethora of BJJ guys that can fuck me up. But if you're a BJJ guy that thinks you can fuck me up by pulling turtle when I'm trying to take your back in a street fight, like I have to assume that you know that's not going to work. Like if you've been doing BJJ for a while and you're like a blue belt or a purple belt, I have to assume that you know what you're doing and you understand that in a real fight that doesn't work, right? Like you obviously you must understand that there's going to be a lot of defensive positions that you just can't do in a street fight. And also there's a lot of limitations. Shrimping is going to be difficult on concrete or like preferably if you're on soil, all right, fine. But on concrete, if you're shrimping around and butt scooting and stuff, like it's not going to go that smoothly. Now, again, I really need to reiterate this. Like, I'm not trying to shit on these martial arts. Like BJJ is an absolute necessity in a mixed martial art. But you need to understand why you're learning it. Do not learn BJJ specifically to follow the competition rules and try to win in a competition. You go into BJJ to use it in a real fight. And if you ever go into a competition, you just adapt to the rules and you can hold back or start doing things that you're not able to do in a real fight. But you always begin learning the martial art with the intention to know how to use it in a real fight. Because that's the maximum amount of benefit from learning the martial art. Now, personally, I prefer judo over BJJ, but when you think about it, these are kind of not that different. Ultimately, BJJ is just a continuation of judo. Like, if you do judo and you slam someone and then you go into an armbar, you're just using judo to get into the BJJ. But that armbar is judo. Like there is ground fighting in judo. Like BJJ is just a continuation of that ground fighting from judo, right? Now, personally, I prefer judo because everybody says, oh, 70% of fights ends up on the floor. Yeah, but 100% of fights start on your feet. And if you go for a punch and, I, you know, dodge, punch back, grab your neck, your shoulder, your elbow, pull, flip you. If I'm doing this correctly, I I'm not just doing it the way that would be in the dojo where I'm just performing the action and I'm not trying to hurt you. Like I'm flipping you with the intention to smash your body against the concrete so that you can't even breathe. Right? I just find more utility in learning judo. And I only say this because the reality is, let's say you want to learn all of these martial arts. If you sign up if you even have the enough money to sign up for Muay Thai, judo, BJJ, freaking, if you're doing BJJ or judo, you're probably going to learn Roman Greco wrestling while you're at it because it's just in there with the curriculum, and sometimes they even throw in sambo. So you're probably going to learn more stuff. And it's not too heavy, but still, if you're trying to do three different martial arts, even if you have enough money to do all that, the schedules are probably going to collide. You're not going to be able to do everything at once, right? So, if you can only choose two, I would say Muay Thai and Judo, because Muay Thai is going to give you all the striking that you need. And then Judo, once you're in the clinch, you can transition into Judo movements. And if you're intending to develop to dish out the maximum amount of carnage, you're going to not just flip people, you're going to slam people. And in a survival situation, you're not trying to protect this person. You're intending for their head to smash against the floor. And I'm talking survival. I'm not talking someone's trying to mug you and you just destroy their life because of it. I'm talking about it's either they die or I die, right? So, like, I need to preface that because I'm not telling you to go out there and destroy people because they looked at you wrong. That is bad. Don't do that. Always de escalate, always try to get away, always try to stop the violence because it's not worth it. But I'm talking about extreme end goal. Society doesn't exist. There are no cops. There is no one to protect you or your family. This person is a threat. It's either they die or you die or your people die or your resources get taken and then you die of starvation. So I just want to make sure you understand what I mean by ultimate end goal, um, the extreme end of survival and martial arts. Now, so if you choose judo and Muay Thai, Muay Thai is probably going to be mixed a little bit with kickboxing. You're probably going to learn some other things there. Judo is probably going to be mixed with Roman Greco wrestling and sambo. So you're going to learn some extra things there. And at some point, you're going to have to do some BJJ because if something happens and you do go to the ground and you're not able to stand back up, you're going to need to at least know all of the positioning, position over submission. You're going to at least need to know how to sweep someone so that if you're on your back, you can be on top. You're going to need to know how to break someone's guard, how to pass that guard. And if you get caught in a half guard or a deep half guard, you're going to need to know how to get out of that, how to move into a side control, how to get into a mount. What happens when you're 50-50, like Southwest North, I forgot. Whatever. Point is, when where if you're on the floor and you're facing this way and they're facing this way, right? You're going to need to understand all of these positions. Some of these positions would be easy for you to stand back up and go back to a standing position and fight from that position, which is optimal. but in certain situations it wouldn't be optimal. If you don't have a weapon and the person is significantly larger than you, and during that fight you realize that they don't know how to fight on the ground, then being on the ground would be beneficial for you, because if this person is on their back, they are losing significant amount of power behind their punches. They're not going to be able to kick for the most part. There's a lot of you're implementing limitations on their ability to fight. So, but in this situation where we're talking ultimate end goal survival of extreme situations, you're never going to be without a weapon. You're always going to carry multiple weapons. So, yeah. Now, moving on, because we already talked about grappling and wrestling. I am not the best wrestler, but I understand a few little things here and there. I try to stick mostly to the judo and the Muay Thai and Wing Chun. I love it, but it's not really something that I would tell someone to learn. I happen to know it because it was the first real martial art that I learned after Tai Chi. I started because I got into like the whole Taoist Buddhist philosophy, which led me to Tai Chi and Qigong and learning Chinese medicine and blah blah blah. And then I was like, all right, but this doesn't feel that effective in a real fight. And then I ended up watching Ip Man, and I was like, oh fuck, I found the one. And I started doing Wing Chun, and Wing Chun ended up being really fun and there's a lot of benefits to it, but it's not something that I would say this is the one you should go with, right? But ultimately, let's put this aside because um, uh, hand-to-hand combat without weapons is only the beginning. This is just if you know all these things, worst case scenario, you're able to defend yourself to the best of your ability, even though you are in the most disadvantaged position possible, which is the position of not having a weapon. So now, when it comes to weapons, I would um, tell you guys to definitely pick up Filipino martial arts. Now, I personally have been practicing Kali, and there are different components to Kali, and I forget all their names, like Spada Idaga, and I forget all of the names, honestly. It's like a whole bunch of Spanish sounding Filipino words. But it's an awesome tradition, it's an awesome martial art, and ultimately, what it's going to teach you how to do is how to fight with a knife, a dagger, a sword, sticks, like the Kali sticks. Um, Bow staff is something that is a possibility to learn how to fight with a bow staff. And then from these things that I've just mentioned, you can pretty much use anything that you're able to hold and either has a blunt, you know, area where you can strike someone with it or a sharp area where you can slash or poke or stab with. Now, there's not much I can really explain about Kali to you. Like there's some basic, you have your stick here, whoop, 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 whoop. You're doing all of this type of stuff. You're using your wrist where you strike here and then you go like this and you strike again. You go like this and now you're striking the knee and you're just moving and you're just doing all of these movements in a sequence and it becomes like a dance where every movement hits and the second movement hits right after. And if you're practicing with someone, you're going to be striking each other's weapons, so the stick is hitting the stick, and you really start to develop these rhythms, and it's awesome. It's an awesome thing to experience. But in a real fight, they're not trying to hit your weapon; they're trying to hit you. So again, like all other martial arts and everything I've been talking about prior, when you learn the martial art, you have to remember that this dance that you're doing, where you're striking each other's weapons, that's not the final goal. This is just to develop the rhythm so that you can remember, so that it's muscle memory. You're remembering boop, 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 and you're doing all these movements in a rhythmic way, so that it becomes second nature, and you can just bust this out and just keep striking without stopping, right? So yeah, and when you have your dag, like I personally, something that I would suggest is getting propylene. Ah, shit, what's the name of it? Propylene, not propylene glycol. I think it's propylene something weapons. It's like this hardened rubber, and you can get knives and daggers and swords and sticks. Shit, I even found a bat that kind of looks like the bat Negan had in The Walking Dead. It's kind of awesome. But it's made out of this you know, hardened rubber. So if you're practicing with someone and you whack them with it, it's gonna hurt, but it's not gonna like chop off their arm or anything. So you can really get into like practicing. Something that I don't understand is that they have all these weapons in that material, but I can't find Kali sticks in that material, which is like, what the heck, right? Like if you can make a bat or a sword or like butterfly swords or like all these different weapons out of this material, you would assume that making two 26-inch sticks out of this material shouldn't be that hard. But nonetheless, I can't find them, so I don't know if you'll be able to find them. But even if you buy traditional Kali sticks made out of, I think it's Rodundi, I forgot what the type of them. I think ash and some other type of wood is also good, but the traditional ones is something that starts with an R. I can't remember, but still, they're fairly cheap. You can get them, and they're easy to keep on your body. So yeah, so I don't want to get too lost in these weapons because there's a lot more that I want to talk about, and this video is pretty long as it is. Um, but ultimately, Kali is definitely the direction to go when it comes to weapons fighting. If you find other weapons fighting and you feel that it's good, you should just pick that up too. But you should know Kali also. Kali is literally taught to like the military. The military sees Kali as a valid way to use knives, swords, all of these like blunt and sharp objects, so if the military is using it, most likely it is um, you know a good method of attacking. Now let's move on to projectiles. Obviously, firearms would be the best option out of everything because nobody's gonna karate chop a bullet out of the sky. At the end of the day, if you're in a survival situation and society does is just non-existent, um it's dog eat dog, like it's either kill or die type shit, right? It doesn't matter how big the person is, how skilled the person is, how many knives he has in his pocket. None of that shit matters. The situation arises, you are now aware that this person is going to harm you in a way that's not repairable. Pull out your gun and blow his face off. It's that simple. And the reality is, and like I need to really, really, really go deep in the disclaimer here. We're talking about society doesn't exist. You can't call the cops. This person is an imminent threat. It's not like they walked past your location and you don't want people to know, so you're gonna blow them. No, we're talking about there is no one to call for help. This person is an imminent threat, Either your family are going to die, or this person is going to take all your resources, and then you and your family will die out of the consequence of that. We're talking, there are no other options. The best situation that you can be in is having a firearm, because you can just shoot center mass and deal with that threat, and that threat is now neutralized, and you, your family, your people get to live another day, right? And I gotta keep honing this in. We're talking about the extreme final goal of martial arts and self-defense and being a warrior. We're talking about the extreme. We're not talking about right now. Right now, if something happens, you can call the cops and they can deal with it. Right now, you can try to run away and enter some sort of store, or you can try, there's all these things you can do to eliminate the ultimate end of someone dying. There's so many ways to not end in that scenario, but we're talking about extreme final, like, ultimate situation where there is no other option. And the reason I go to this extreme is because if you are ready, willing, and capable of doing that in that extreme situation, then right now you are still ready, able, and capable of doing that, but you don't have to. So you don't. You hold back. You don't need to draw your weapon. You don't need to shoot. You don't need to do that. There are other ways to survive the situation in today's modern world, and you can call the cops to assist you. You have infrastructure. This person, whether they robbed you or beat you up, they can be brought to justice, go to jail, face consequences for what they did. They have a chance of rehabilitation and re entering the world, understanding that they're not allowed to do stuff like that. There are many ways to get past this. But if you're not ready, willing, and able to go to the extreme, then when the extreme becomes necessary, you're going to be left up Shit's Creek without a paddle. And that's the last place you want to be. So, in an extreme situation, you need to be capable and willing to perform this action. You can't feel guilt, shame, or fear. You need to understand it's either me or him, it's either my family or him, it's either my stuff or him, and you always choose yours over theirs. Now, in I would say I would extend this projectile section to not just firearms. Now, just sticking to firearms for a little bit, if you become proficient at firearms, obviously you should be learning how to use many different types of firearms, from pistols to shotguns to rifles to semi-automatic weapons. You should be understanding how all of these types of weapons work. You should be understanding the basic principles of firearms, so that if you come across a weapon that you haven't seen before, you at least understand how to make it work, and you are able to perform under pressure. You should probably pick up certain skills like making bullets, um, repurposing certain things, maybe old shells that you could restock, like repack or something, turn it into a new bullet. You should be learning these types of things, because we're you're I'm talking about the extreme. So it's not like you could go to Walmart and get an entire box of ammo. You're gonna need to scavenge. You're gonna need to, and I know this might sound crazy, because it's like, why are you preparing for the end of the world? I'm not. I'm just saying, if you're ready for that, everything less than that is super easy to deal with, right? So whenever you prepare for something, you should always be prepared for the most extreme end of that thing. And then when that extreme thing isn't happening, it's something much less, then it's way easier to deal with and it's a lot less effort to deal with, right? Now, another thing is that firearms aren't the only projectiles. Obviously, you should learn how to use crossbows and different types of bow and arrows. And not only that, but you should learn how to make a bow and arrow, right? It's not that hard as long as you know how to find the specific type of wood and how to shave it down so that it performs right. Now, I can't go into the actual details of how to make it because it's been a few years since I've went through that training. So, like obviously, like I said, I have my limitations. There are things that I forget in the moment. Now, I have notes on these things, so if I needed to make a bow and arrow, it's not that hard to like reteach myself. Like I already know how to do it. I just need to remember the name of the type of wood. I'm pretty sure that you're looking for a um a softer wood so that there's bend to it, and when you're shaving it down, it has to be shaved down in a specific way where it's shaved down like like with the grain. You don't want cracks in the grain because then the wood will like burst, crack or whatever. And the type of string that you want to use is quite specific. Um, but for the most part, this is a simple process that can be learned on YouTube. So, and now the actual bows, the actual arrows are a little more complicated. It's simple stuff, but you're looking for specific type of resources because an arrow that's crooked isn't going to fly straight. So you're going to need to find wood branches that are specific um, length, not length, because you could chop it down to the length that you need it, but a specific thickness, and it has to be a specific straightness so that it flies straight, which is a lot easier to find than you think if you're out in like the wilderness. But still, it's still something you have to teach yourself, right? Now, yeah, and I believe again, you're looking for a lighter wood, a softer wood, because heavier woods are obviously heavier, and lighter woods would fly faster and straighter and all of that. Now, I might be wrong about some of the things that I'm mentioning because it's been a while since I've gone into the making of a bow and arrow. Because as of right now, like you could just buy them, like literally, like Amazon has awesome bow and arrows for like $100, sometimes even less, like $80, right? So, and bow and arrows are practically legal like everywhere in the United States. Like I don't know of a single place where it's illegal to have a bow and arrow. Now, let's move on to some other things. Something that I think would be very beneficial for you under these parameters is taking an offensive driving course. If you have the money for it and you want to spring for some extreme stuff, then taking a stunt driver course would also be good. Stunt driving, I think, would be better than the offensive driving, but offensive driving is a little more practical because we're just talking about faster movements, being able to drive at a faster speed, and all of these types of things. But stunt driving is what sets you apart from the average man. If you're able to make a complete 180 turn on the drop of a dime, this makes you more capable of getting away from someone that's driving after you. But we also have to understand that in certain situations, vehicles might be difficult to come across or to maintain, or to even provide fuel for it. So you should understand how to use other types of vehicles, like motorcycles, different types of motorcycles, um, maybe even four wheelers, boats. If you live in a region where driving boats is like normal, right? Like if there's like rivers and such, being able to like drive a boat is probably beneficial. Um, but something that I personally really, really enjoy is horseback. Being able to, um, I don't want to say drive because you don't drive a fucking horse, but like being able to ride a horse is really beneficial because in certain situations, like I honestly don't believe there's wild horses anymore, at least not in the United States. But it's under these parameters, like assuming that society no longer exists, um, horses that were captive might become wild horses. Like, like they might get away and wind up in places. And learning how to capture and sort of break a horse and how to ride it um, would be great. And certain things that would be beneficial would be knowing how to make a makeshift seat for the horse so that you're not hurting its back while riding it. Riding a horse without the seat is possible, but not beneficial because, when you're on the horse and you have your feet in the little thing that holds your feet, you're kind of putting your pressure on the feet so that your weight is sort of shifted throughout the entirety of the back. Whereas if you don't have that seat, your weight is on your butt and it's like right on their spine. And that's not good for the horse, at least from what I know. So you might want to learn how to be able to do some sort of makeshift seat for the horse, but learning how to ride the horse, and more importantly, learning how to shoot firearms, um, arrows, how to use some sort of like large stick or sword while on on horseback. These would be super beneficial. Now, if you want to go to the super extreme, where I haven't even gone there, is learning how to drive other types of vehicles, like vehicles that can fly and stuff. And that is way beyond my capability. I would never be able to afford the type of classes needed to fly a helicopter or a small plane or something like that. I mean, I don't see how this would end up being something that you would need, but if you knew how to do it and the situation arose where you needed to know how to do it, obviously you would be in a better position than I am. But learning to fly is a way more complicated thing and it takes many years, and I'm assuming that it's expensive, so that's on you if you want to learn that. Like, let's say if you end up trapped on a roof and there happens to be a helicopter and it's fully fueled and you happen to know how to fly a helicopter, fucking awesome, right? But for the most part, I don't think that I'm ever going to be in a situation where I need to fly. So, you know now, obviously, I don't want to make you guys think that I'm like super esoteric dude and I'm trying to warn you that the end is near or anything. But ultimately, we don't know. Like, it's possible. But the intention behind this video is not to tell you that the end might come and you need to be prepared for it, but rather that if you're prepared for a super extreme scenario, every single thing less than that becomes super easy to deal with. If you are the type of fighter that can absolutely demolish someone, like literally murder them, not murder is illegal. Literally self-defense kill them in like 13 like in 15, 30 seconds, something like that. you can definitely hold back in a self-defense situation. If you just happen to get into a fight with a random guy, there is no need to go above and beyond in the carnage. You do not need to actually hurt this person. You just need to neutralize their ability to hurt you. You don't need to neutralize them, right? So I really hope you guys are really, really paying attention to these stipulations that I'm making, because if I was in the street and someone just picked a fight with me, I would most likely de-escalate, say, "Hey man, I'm sorry, I don't want a problems," and I would try to avoid the fight completely. And if they escalate, I would start backing away, keeping my eyes on them so that I don't get attacked from behind. But I would start backing away, trying to walk in a direction away from them and prevent the fight from beginning, and like if I wasn't in my situation and it was a mugging, I would probably just give them the thing that they wanted. But in my situation, I don't have access to these types of things. If I have something in my possession and they take it, that's it. I will no longer have that thing forever. And when that situation is presented to me, I'm like, "I'm sorry, I really don't want to hurt you, but this item is important to me, and I am willing to, like, you know, break something, a part of your body, in order for me to keep it." And like that sucks, and I really wish that we could choose the peaceful route, but I've decided that this physical item is worth your arm being broken. So yeah. So I really hope you guys understand. I am not telling you to be a fucking maniac and attack people, or like even if you were attacked first, you should still show restraint. If you've achieved that level of, you know, combat where you know that you can destroy this person, you should still hold restraint, and try to seek every avenue of prevention before let the demon out, let the dogs off, like out the cage type thing. But my ultimate message is that if you train for something very basic and something extreme happens, you will be way out of your depth and won't have the ability to address the problem. But if you train for the extreme situation and the simple thing happens, you will be able to handle it with ease. And it really ends up coming back to that old saying, it's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. So I hope you guys understand what I'm saying, and I hope you don't take this as a reason to be brutal and to be terrible people. I hope you understand that the whole point of being a warrior is simply to defend your life, the life of your family and your people, and the resources that you need for you and them to survive. That is ultimately the goal. If the person gives up and says, I don't want your stuff anymore, just let me live," you let them live. And this is a hard thing to do because in an extreme situation, that might be a trick. They might be going to get more people and come back to slaughter you. And those types of decisions are going to be made in the moment. And I can't tell you what to decide. I hope that we continue living in a world where we have the luxury of choosing mercy. I really do. But there is a possibility that we end up in a situation where that's no longer an option. And when that is no longer an option, you will either be the one that dishes out violence or the one that receives the violence. And I'm always going to choose me over you.